So, welcome everybody to our webinar today from Incarceration to Careers. We make reentry way too hard. That's what we hear over and over again from people who are transitioning out of incarceration. And this is so evident when it comes to getting a job because we make it hard to get work, even though we know from research and from the experience of millions of people trying to navigate reentry that employment is the key to reentry success. And there is an urgent need to make a change here. There are 77 million people in America with records, and this number grows because more than 600,000 people leave America's prisons and jails every year. And the people who are impacted by all of our current crises, racism, economic recession, and this global pandemic, are all doubly impacted by having a record. People of color, especially Black, Latinx, and Native Americans, are over-incarcerated, underemployed, and overly impacted by COVID. So now really is a time of opportunity. If we change the structural and systemic barriers to reentry, it also gives us an opportunity to disrupt inequity on multiple levels. So what needs to change in order to make the expectation and not the exception for people to move from incarceration to careers? In this webinar, we'll talk about this. What are the individual and systemic challenges that people face when they transition after incarceration? We'll hear what it takes to navigate these challenges to reach careers. And more importantly, we'll talk about what recommendations there are in order to make a change so that people can move from incarceration to careers. And we have two incredible guests for this conversation. First, Jacqueline Helm, who's a welder at the Sureway Group, will share about her experiences with reentry, which quite frankly, she is extraordinary. And then we have Victor Dickson, who's the president and CEO of the Safer Foundation, and we'll talk about the work that they've been doing for decades to improve the transitions for people with records. And just a note on logistics. Because this is a recorded webinar, we won't be able to interact and take live questions from you at the moment, but we will be there to interact with you in the chat. So please do share some questions live in the chat, and any of the questions that you all shared early, thank you very much. We'll try to address those as well. So let me now get to our guests. As I said, I'm here with Jacqueline Helms and Victor Dickson. And so I'm going to turn it over. Jacqueline, do you want to just give a short, brief introduction about yourself? And then we'll have Victor do the same, and then we'll jump right into the conversation.
Yeah. So my name's Jackie. My real name's Jacqueline. My nickname's Jackie for short. I'm from Chicago, born and raised. So when I was younger, I ended up getting into group, gangs in Chicago. Everybody knows you from Chicago. It's rough. So I ended up getting very influenced at a very young age, following the wrong path. We all make mistakes. Everybody's different. I ended up committing a crime that caused me 10 years of my life. At first, I was looking at life in prison. I never gave up, always kept my head high, every day, that things will overturn and turn out for the better. So I ended up just keeping faith, ended up getting my time reduced. And I followed just the same path when I came home, just keeping my head up high because I knew it'd be a struggle. So when I came home, very stereotyped, one thing is I was in prison for a while. Two things is I didn't have anything in my background. I have absolutely no experience. I have a lot of talents, but I don't have any experience at all. So I was put for the back burner of jobs. Of course, right when I came home, COVID was going on. So that was kind of like a big struggle too as well because the world had changed drastically. Not only just for me the experience, but just everything interaction. So I couldn't interact with anybody, tell them why do I deserve a job? Why should I be a good candidate? I had to do everything over email or over phone. So when they do the background check, they're like, yeah, next. So I did get a couple of like no's at first, you know, a couple like, hey, we'll train you, but when your background comes back, you know, you're going to be fired. So I was put down a little bit, but you know, when you in life, I realized like you get put down a lot. Just got to keep going forward. And I ended up just knocking on wood, getting some by just, I don't know if it's grace of God, luck, or just keeping the same path. I ended up going for an interview for UPS. They called me, and ended up getting a career with them. School was actually paid for in the beginning. um Good benefits, you know, because at first when you come out, you know, you don't have any of the insurances or anything like that, but you know, with Safer, they helped me get all that anyway. But if you didn't have anybody like Safer, you get a good job that comes with benefits and stuff like that. It's a plus, because you know, you need to make sure you're okay before anything. Make sure yourself is fine mentally and physically. So a lot of people come home with mental health issues and stuff. They need their medication. So it worked hand in hand for me. You know, if I didn't have them, at least, you know, I had a career that was making sure I was okay. So I ended up working with them. I actually loved it. I worked during the craziest season, which was holiday season. I survived. While I was working them nights and crazy shifts, because I worked nights, I took anything that was offered to me, because at times, you know, you're not going to get what you want at the moment. So I took it, and I also got enrolled in school for college for to become a welder. I currently attend Lincoln Technical Institute, a technical college right there in Melrose Park in Illinois. I love it. At first, you know, I went in there to become an electrician, and I will never forget, I got denied to become an electrician, and the lady that's over the school, her name's Karen. Her name's Karen Clark. Said, you know, you need anything? You know, my head was down, and you know, I was kind of in the dumps, because they told me, because of my background, that even if I finished becoming an electrician, I would never get a good job, because big companies wouldn't want to hire somebody like me. So why pay all that money? You know, you're paying like $24,000 to go to school, and you're gonna have student loans. So I was kind of glad that I was told that before I kind of wasted my time. But majority of people would just give up. Like, you know what, I'm going back to what I'm used to. Want to do this, want to do that. And I didn't. You know, the bad side of me. You know, you got a good and a bad. You know, devil and angel, you know. And yeah, at times, you know, I wanted to like just give up on just even myself and everything I worked for, and just be like, you know what, I'm gonna just go used to what I'm used to doing. But I couldn't. You know, I have so many support in my corner, and not only that, I want better for myself. So I ended up just sitting there. A guy comes from the school, is like, what's wrong? And I was like, you know what, man, you know, I have these dreams, but I have these barriers of, because I made one mistake in my life. I've never been incarcerated before. One mistake, you know, and it cost me for my dreams to just be shattered, you know, and for me to be successful. So he's like, you know, he looks at me, he's like, hey, he sees all my tattoos, and he's like, you like art? And I was like, yeah, you know, it's crazy. It's like one of my hobbies. I was like, I love it. And he was like, let me show you something. Shows me around the school, and I'm actually a part of the first class in this college in Chicago. They are the first to open up a welding class in this school. So they have many schools across the United States. It's not just here. So, you know, if you are interested in just following anything trade, I recommend this school 100%. And he showed me around, and he was like, "You, how do you think about welding?" It actually was an option with electrician, but I wanted to do that first because I instantly thought of money. What would make me okay for the rest of my life, you know? And I wasn't, you know, I think things happen for a reason, because I wasn't doing it because it made me happy in my heart. I was doing it because it was happy because of money situations, you know? And he shows me around, shows me the machine, shows me just like hands-on stuff, and I instantly loved it, and I was like, I'm gonna give it a shot. I met my instructor before anybody else did. We hit it off. Really cool dude. He told me about the field, told me, and I asked him many questions. Of course, one of my main questions, you know, I told him about myself, my situation. I'm very open about it, so it doesn't bother me 100% at all. And I told him, like, well, do welders get, jobs in the field? It doesn't matter if you have a felon or not. He said, you know what? This industry is one of the biggest where they don't care about your background. They want to see, can you weld? Do you know what you're doing? And if you're good at it. He said he's got a couple guys who did 25 years, came out and became great welders, and they have great, great, great jobs, and they travel, and some do maybe 3 jobs a year, but those 3 jobs a year get paid for like that whole year, and he told me, he had all his buddies got face tattoos and stuff like that, and it didn't matter, because if you know what you're doing in the field with all the guys, then it doesn't matter. Told me about his experience in the shipyard, working for the Marines for the ship, and all that I could do, without somebody looking at my background. And that was a big plus for me because I've always been stereotyped, always, my whole life. Um, I've always been judged. So to find something that I'm not, you know, and even as being a woman, and going to being in a guy's job, a guy's field, they don't care about that. And I've been with them since. It's a 10-month course, and I'm almost done. In April I'll be finished, and I'll have my full welding degree. But so far I have my stick cert, I have my MIG cert, my TIG cert, I have my cutting cert. And basically with them certs, I was able to get a job before graduation, and I switched my job over to Sureway Tool and Engineering, also very, very close to my area. And I'm like 15 minutes away from work, so it works with my schedule, so I can still finish school. So I was blessed. Better benefits, good experience is what I need. I mean, I'm gonna have the degree, but you need experience. You need to know what you're doing. You need to know the safety stuff because it is a dangerous job, and you got to know, being around with other people in the field. You got to not just take care of yourself, but with others, because you will work with dangerous gases and fumes and tools, and you got to learn how to use them. So um, since I've been in my path in life, I've met a lot of people who I've helped, talk about safer. I talked about this is my school because I know a lot of people who just give up. I told them, don't, because things don't just get handed to you, and everybody got to remember that. I came home too with a lot of mental health issues, a lot of time I did in prison too, and a lot of trauma I had in the streets before I got incarcerated. But you get the help you need, and acknowledge that you need it, go get it, and always know that somebody will be there to help you. If you don't get that genuine feeling from that person, there's always somewhere else. So you might get knocked down a few times because of who we are, but as long as you keep going, and you keep their head on strong, everything's gonna be fine. Like I said, you gotta want it though. If you don't want it, it's not gonna come after you. You gotta go get it. And every day is very hard struggle. I work many hours, and I go to school, so I don't get off my feet from like 4 a.m. all the way to like 10:30, 11 at night. And I do it again, I do it again, I do it again. But I know it's only temporary, and the work will pay off eventually, And I mean, for everybody, all I could say for many things, I want people to just education. Even if you don't have your high school or GED, there are places that will provide you the tools you need. I got a buddy who I got in school because they didn't have any type of education, and some jobs you do need that, because I'm sure a lot of people don't want to work $8 an hour full time, part time, so that is a big thing. And my mom was always right about that. Your education's a must. And now I see that now. It's older, but it's kind of you gotta tell yourself. And I know I'm not a really book person, but I'm very hands-on. So if you're hands-on, I very recommend a trade. And it people think when they hear college, you got to be like this big college. Like, it's not. Like, sometimes you just need your degree and just get hands-on training. And I know right now, because of COVID, a lot of people are doing e-learning, so that would have not been okay for me because, like I said, I'm hands-on. So I'm thankful. Every day I go to school, Monday through Friday, and I get absolutely I get book work, but I get a lot of lab time. So I'm there every day. Some people I hear like I
Mhm.
haven't been to class in like months. I'm like, well, I go every day,
Mhm.
and I need that, especially being incarcerated for a while and not having really the skills, because unfortunately in the inside they don't really have anything, especially for women. They don't have any type of programs. So you got to build yourself a plan before you come home. You got to make a pros and cons basically type of graph, and that's kind of what I did. And I was thankful I actually met Safer way before I came home. I went to a reentry class. It's a big thing. They do it like twice a year, but it's like a 2 year thing before you come home to a year. And I attended, and it was in the gym full of a whole bunch of different people. Secretary of State for your license, for your state ID, for medical insurance, for what else? They even had stuff out of state, and it was like I met them in a booth and they came over, and coming to find out they were coming to the prison. So I ended up talking to somebody. I really don't remember who the name was, but I ended up getting all the information, and getting I got my state ID before I came home. It was actually in the mail like when I stepped through the door. I had insurance. I got food stamps, like all that. Like I got all that within like I think 3 weeks that I was home,
Mhm.
and I was able to go see a mental health provider. I was able to go get checked out, a full
Mhm.
physical. I was
Mhm.
able to, because of my ID, get a job. And
Yep.
all those things. I didn't just do it on my own. Basically, is what I'm saying.
Mhm.
All these things came from some sort of person or organization that helped me as well, because
Yep.
like I said, I didn't I knew the world was going to be like, oh, society, prison felon, bad. But I've met doctors when I was in there. I met lawyers, I met nurses, made one mistake, and it cost them, for their
Yep.
careers and to start over.
And
And
Jackie,
yeah.
oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, since Victor's on, I was going to have Victor, who's the CEO of Safer, talk a little bit about the programming that you've already touched on that happens while you're incarcerated, but when you came out. And Victor, do you want to talk a little bit about Safer's work in this area? And also, if you want to touch on what Jackie touched on, that now this is complicated by COVID and how that's impacted what you do and your ability to really reach out and touch people.
Sure. And Lucretia, thank you for the invitation. And it's always great for us to partner with JFF. And Jackie, I mean, she's a rock star. So
Thanks, man.
I'll talk about her too. But our organization's been around. We're coming up on our 50th year anniversary, and we help people with arrest and conviction records, because even if you have an arrest record and maybe have never been incarcerated in prison, you can still run into a lot of obstacles and barriers that keep you from doing the things that everybody else can do, like get a job. Um, and we have a model that has kind of evolved from being first focus primarily on employment. That is still our end goal. End game is to make sure people can get a living wage career opportunity. That's where we're headed with our clients. But we've had to be more holistic. I mean, we've had to address issues around housing. You heard Jacqueline talking about connections to healthcare and mental health and drug treatment. Um, Simple things like getting an state ID. I mean, you can't hardly do anything without an ID. That's really critical. Education is very critical. So right now we have a much more holistic kind of model. In terms of COVID, um, you know, Jacqueline, I think you came out, Jackie, right around the start of COVID, right
Yeah, yeah,
around
very
April,
beginning.
somewhere around
Mm-hmm.
there. So what happened in our state is, I think it's happened around the country. to reduce the overcrowding in the prison. The state prison system implemented earned discretionary sentence credit. So people who were nonviolent, who basically had, a good record while inside prison, they gave them some additional time off, and a lot of people were released. So what we were asked to do by the governor's office in Illinois was to help those people coming back to the Chicago area, because they were being released without a lot of the normal planning, particularly on the side of their families. They were coming out at a time where people were being laid off of work. They're coming back to, in many cases, families that were struggling already. So, it's a situation where we had to step in and help. So we created a program that we call the Prison Emergency Early Release Response Team. And we kind of spearheaded an effort with several other agencies to do the most basic things, like give people a care package that has clothing, food, toiletries, cell phones, because, everything is being done virtually. So people needed a phone with a data plan so they can communicate with the various support agencies so they can apply for a job. I mean, you're not going into anybody's office applying for a job right now. So all of that was important. Connecting them to healthcare, connecting them to mental health resources, and then working with them to get them placed into jobs or into training programs. I'm excited about Jackie because, as you can see, she's a special person. But I want to tell you that a lot of people, like Jackie, they're special too. And there's more people like Jackie that have records than people that we kind of stereotypically think about as being, a person with a record. You meet her, and unless she told you she had a record, you never even think that at all. How motivated she is, how committed she is to her own success, how willing she is to put the hard work in. I mean, there are a lot of people like that in the world. Some of them have records, some of them don't. And her self-disclosure is the only reason why you know about her. But I'm excited, Jackie, for what you're doing. There's a tremendous opportunity in our country right now because a lot of baby boomers are retiring. There are a lot of people that have been in living wage careers that don't require college education. They do require, for example, a portable, stackable credentials in those industries. And when she said she's earned these multiple credentials, that's what that is, starting from the most basic to the more complex skills that you need and knowledge that you need. But once you get those credentials, once you have them, you have them. You can go anywhere in the country and you can work. We had a project that happened here in Chicago, and they had to bring in welders from Louisiana somewhere because we don't have enough welders. Some of the people working on the pipeline work out west. I mean, they've imported people from all over the country, and they make a lot of money. I mean, they make about 4 times what the average American worker earns in income as a welder. So there are other careers like that in IT and manufacturing. Now we're working with companies in, of course, transportation, a lot of trucking opportunities, banks, healthcare. You'd be surprised at the demand that exists right now for skilled workers that are really, really good family supporting income. And that's what we're doing a lot of with our clients.
Victor, I know another thing that you all are working on at Safer, and Jackie brought this up. So here's a very talented woman who goes to Lincoln Tech. The school has no problem whatsoever enrolling her as an electrician, but there's some regulations around that, collateral consequences that prevent her from getting a job. And I know that Safer has been working on those issues. Can you talk a little bit about where those barriers come up? And how you all have been working to address that. I know we've got some questions from people wondering about what are the policy barriers, and then also wondering about how you start to address them. So can you talk a little bit about what you all have done in that area?
Yeah, I think that we tend to look at our role in two ways. One is eliminating barriers and obstacles, but the other one is kind of creating opportunities. So, on the barrier side, one of the estimates is that all around the country, in every state, there are all kinds of policies and laws that are designed to basically keep people with records from fully participating in our society and our economy, to keep them out of certain careers. So there are some of those things that can be addressed through legislation, that can be addressed by working with private corporations, working with government to change policies. A simple thing, like in our state, we had on occupational licensing laws, there were 110 occupations that if you had a felony conviction, you could not get a license to work in that field. You couldn't be an embalmer. You couldn't be a roofer. You could cut hair as a barber in prison for 20 years and be an expert, but you couldn't get a license when you came out. So we did work on a few years ago a omnibus bill to deal with changing the occupational licensing law in the state and creating a pathway and a means for people to prove that they have been rehabilitated, to disconnect this barrier to entering the profession from what their conviction might be if it's unrelated, to speed up the process that's used by the licensing bodies to give them a license. So that was a major, major victory. But there are barriers in all areas. There are education barriers. There are barriers in financial aid and housing. You just be shocked at what people run into renting an apartment. The simple basic things that we take for granted, getting a business loan, all kinds of things that they're obstacles. Voting, there's still probably 6 states where you can't even vote because if you have a felony conviction. So we have in essence created a second class citizenship and relegated people into that role. And then we ask ourselves, well, why don't they do something? Why don't they pull themselves up by the bootstraps? Well, we've cut off the bootstraps. They don't even have boots. And we want to tell people or think that they have a character flaw because they don't pull themselves up by the bootstraps. Well, Jackie is proof. You know, they are committed,
Yeah.
they have assets, they can be a benefit not only to themselves and their families, but to our corporations and to our society. She's in the miserable boat with the rest of us now, paying taxes,
Mm.
coming
Yeah,
home exhausted.
I'm actually trying to look for a place. I actually want to be completely 100% like on my own.
Yep,
So I'm
see it.
actually in the process of doing that. Actually, I want to be 100% on my own by March. Most definitely March. But
Yeah,
I have to say something that you know what I forgot. And every prison, I'm pretty 100% positive on this. You have stimulation, so when you come on parole, you have things you have to do, classes you have to attend. A lot of pro officers don't reach out to you, especially right now. I know a couple people who've come home and haven't even spoken to their parole officer, and
hmm
they have to get these classes done for their parole. So I had 2 classes I had to do. I had anger management and I had mental health courses. Um, Without Safer, I wouldn't know where to go. I didn't know who to call. COVID, I can't walk up in it anywhere. I was able to finish my courses also, like, I think 3 weeks or a month. I was able to finish my stimulation for my mental health. And it was great because I was getting one-on-one therapy. So it was perfect. And keeping up, if you need medication change, if you need to. And then in the future, they wanted me to come in. So that was a plus. And then I finished my anger management course. also through Safer. So I got that done quick. My when I finally did talk to my parole officer, I was done. I was doing what I was supposed to do. So she didn't have no reason to contact me. You know, if you don't give them a problem, they won't bother you. So you make your monthly call or weekly call, depends on whatever your situation is. And I had to call every week, so I had to put a reminder like, okay, every Thursday I'm calling every Thursday. And I went from calling every week. So I'm doing so well. I went from a level 1 to a level 3. A level 3 is basically I don't talk to them or hear them for 6 months. And now I don't see them until they're gonna put in. I had 2 years of parole, and they're putting it in that I get a year off early because I'm just doing everything you're supposed to do. So if you do what you're supposed to do and you do good, you get rewarded. It might not mean much, but to me, my freedom is everything. To get that off my back 100% and not have to answer to anybody, and it's a great feeling. So that might go hand in hand with graduation, and that's going to be a blessing, you know.
That's great.
That's
And
amazing, Jackie.
oh
And the
man,
point that
and
you're making, is so huge. There's a difference between getting out of prison and being free.
yeah,
And having the supports like a Safer, like an
yeah,
employer like
hmm,
UPS that hires people, like
yeah,
Lincoln Tech, that you may not be able to be an electrician, but they stick with you to find what you want to do.
yeah,
That's the conversation we need to be having in this
and
country, how to break down the barriers so when people leave, they are actually free.
you got to
I
figure it
love
out.
what you're saying there. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's another question that's come up, and I wonder if you both want to touch on this. What are some strategies that you all are seeing? What are the differences and challenges that people face if they have a disability when they're coming out? And Jackie, I don't know if you had any people you were incarcerated with who've come out, or friends who've come out who went in with either a mental or a physical
Hmm.
disability and they've come out. And Victor, the same for you. What are some of the different challenges and some of the ways that they need to be supported in really unique ways for them to get out as well?
um well, for me, I'm gonna, like I said, I'm very open. I like to tell my story. I'm not ashamed of anything. Being incarcerated for a while, and I had a lot of trauma. I was only 18 years old. I was a young girl, and I didn't have anybody there, family wise, to guide me. It was very negative energy, and I suffered from anxiety, very very bad anxiety, from IED that's holding a lot of stuff in. It's intermittent explosive disorder. So I'd get upset and I'd be mad. I'd react before I think, and it'd be too late. Um, I suffered from very depression, but I got the help I need, and it was a struggle when I think the first week I came home, I had an episode, and I kind of lost it for a second, but I knew that I needed help, and I acknowledged that that I didn't just come home. I came home and I was not okay. Going through that, by yourself, completely by yourself, it was hard, man. And I had to get help, and I had to acknowledge that. And it was very hard. It was very hard. I didn't feel like nobody could relate to me. I didn't know who to talk to, and that's very a big thing. You feel kind of alone. You're free, but you feel you're by yourself. And then you're trying to make it. You're trying to make it. You're trying to make it. And you keep getting these walls and these walls, and then you're getting more down. So of course, your depression, your things start kicking in. Your feelings, and it was some times, man. But you know what? I don't know how I'm here or why, but I acknowledge I needed help. But through the insurance and stuff, because that stuff's expensive. I think one time I went in to get medication, it was like $80 for like I would say like 20 capsules. It's for my anxiety and my depression meds, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, I was like, wow, for people who don't have insurance, like that's a hole in your pocket, and that's just for that month. If you're paying that monthly, I mean, and if you can't get your if you are, see, now I don't take any medication now. I've gone to kind of completely. That's my choice. Not saying it's anybody else's, but I've completely found other ways and hobbies, because I didn't want to depend on stuff like that. But if you have to find obviously something that's going to make sure that you get your medication. Because if you don't, you have an episode, you can end up back in prison or end up, you know, in the psych ward or some, you know, really, you know, bad. So it's very important that, you know, a lot of people, because there are a lot of people who have schizophrenia issues and a lot of issues. And, you know, that's a big thing. So that, you know, for 100% for me, you know, without me making sure that I was okay, because you're not going to be okay within your life if you're not okay mentally. Like, that's a big plus, especially if, like, what I've been through. I know people who've done a month or a year. I know people who've done 20 or 30 years, and I know they're not okay, you know, and that's got to be the first thing you do when you come home, is make sure you yourself are okay, and try to find, you know, without, like I said, without safer, I would have paid what, 80, if I needed, if I was having an episode, I needed my medication, I'm paying 80 to $100 for 20 capsules a month, you know, and that's as needed. What if you need it daily, you know, it's going to be more. um so that to me is to me is a big thing, because I know a lot of people that come home with a lot of issues, and a lot of people don't like to talk about it, very touchy, but it's something that does need to be recognized. And, you know, without them, you know, I wouldn't have been able to get the my providers at all. So, and you can't just walk up in anywhere, especially right now. So
Yeah.
I have a friend who actually was shot. They did time, and they can't walk, so they're confined to a chair, and it was hard for him in there. He couldn't, you're in a wheelchair, and not only on top of that, you're in prison. So he came home, and they have to do physical therapy. They got to do get the stuff, their medication for pain and stuff like that. It's not just because you're in a chair you don't have any pain in your legs. So he actually got help and made sure he got his therapy, because there is a chance he could walk, but it's going to take some time, and that stuff ain't cheap either. I actually broke my toe a couple weeks ago. Yeah, it was during Christmas. So I broke my toe. I actually broke my toe moving some furniture for my grandmother, and I got a paper back. I have county care, and I got my paper back from the hospital. It must have been some misunderstanding from my insurance, but it I had a just for a couple hours, I think, and I didn't even. I got some medication. That was it. The bill alone, like, I have the paper. It's $475 for just there for like 2 hours, and I was like, like, it's crazy. Like, anything can happen, like accidents and stuff like that. Like, you can't control what happens on your daily, but I just I just be thinking, like, you don't realize how expensive things are until it happens to you. And it was like, wow, it's a big plus. So I hurried up and called, like, hey, I have insurance, what's going on? And she was like, oh, we're gonna figure it out for you. We're gonna get back to you and stuff like that. But just in case, if I wasn't insured and I had an accident, what what would I do? Like, you can't pay that, let alone if you don't have a job, like, so it's just obstacles and stuff like that, and my friend that went through is that's in the chair, like I said, he's getting his medication, he's getting his everything, his doctor visits, because he's trying to he's trying to walk again, but it's going to take some time. So he has
Right.
organization he worked with as well, and he just got off at complete off parole, I think, was it like last month. So he's doing what he has to do. So I think that's like a big thing for me as well.
That's
So
great. Well, Lucretia, I would say that the first thing is that um, whether you have any kind of uh, you know, disability of any sort or not, people being released from prison, most people who are incarcerated are coming from families that were living below the poverty level before they were incarcerated. While they're in prison, if they were any kind of contributor to the family, that means that family has lost income. Unless there's some intervention when they get out, they're going to make 40% less than they would for the rest of their life, unless there's some sort of intervention. So many people who come out, they they are coming out with nothing. I mean, in Illinois, I think we just raised the gate money amount to like $50. I don't know, Jackie, what it was when you came out. Did they give you like $20, or maybe 50?
No,
But
you know what? I actually came home with like zero,
okay, so
100% zero
well, they
dollars.
they they give you $50 now. So $50, you're usually living with someone or in some sort of transitional housing. You have no job, you have no insurance. If you've got physical health problems or mental health issues, behavioral health issues, um, you have no access to anything. So we started to kind of realize probably 4 or 5 years ago that it's very difficult to help someone be successful in employment if their lives are not stable, if you don't have stable housing, if you don't have the meds that you need so you can be stable behaviorally. um, you know, if you don't have accessibility in terms of if you have any kind of physical handicap. So one of the things that we did was we created the Safer Counseling and Wellness Center. And it's that center where we basically implement supportive employment and supportive housing programs to to basically help people get stable so that they can then move on to employment and move on to self-sufficiency. So in terms of connecting people with health, physical health resources, with mental health resources, with housing, getting that in place for them. If they don't have food and clothing, getting some basic life needs met, helping them get their ID, any other documentation that they may need to get a job, getting them into training, getting them into employment, helping them fulfill their mandates from parole is very critical. Um, we don't realize that we have 2.5 million people incarcerated in jails and prisons in our country, but there are over 5 million people whose lives are still being controlled by the justice system that are on probation or parole. There are places they can't go, things they can't do because they're on what they call being on paper. And so getting off paper is really important because that opens up more opportunities for you. Many employers won't hire someone who's on paper, because they're still, not completely done with their sentence. They're out in the street, but they're not totally done with their conviction. And if that employer has rules or industries have rules around, you have to be, 3 years from being done with your supervision before we'll hire you or let you enroll in an educational program. As long as you're on paper, that clock doesn't start. So that's really what we try and do. We are trying to grow that because we have seen that about 20% of the people that we serve have this need for more supportive housing and supportive employment. Uh, and so we're trying to grow that part of our operation and expand it right now because the need is great, and you can't get to successful employment without stabilizing those other factors.
Yeah. And on the other end of that, of what you shared, what Jackie shared as well, is that employer. So the work that you all do at Safer is to serve the role of the employer while you're trying to help stabilize. But then also Jackie talked about now two employers, UPS and the Sureway Group. And Jackie, I know you and I have talked before. But when you got the job at UPS, you not only got your first job at UPS, but a promotion at UPS. I'm wondering if you want to talk a little bit about the environment in that place where you're having a record really didn't have any impact, and they were open to not only hiring you, but making sure that you advanced as well.
Yeah. So in the beginning, when I was looking and finding jobs, like I said, a lot of jobs were willing to train me, but would fire me when my background would come back. So I ended up applying to UPS, and I'm like, well, I'm gonna give it a shot. It was like 30 minutes away, and so I went and I applied online. I got a call from the HR, and they were like, hey, what are your like experiences? And I told them a little bit of what I had. You know, it wasn't much, but they told me, you know, am I willing to come in and look around and see, you know, how I'd like it. So I came in and I met the guy over UPS, and his name was Josh, and he really he was like, why UPS? We talked one on one, and I was like, you know what? I was like, I was like, I heard nothing but good about the company. I have actually nothing bad to say. And you know what? And I told him my situation, very honest, because like I said, I don't want nobody to feel like, oh, they hire me and then you know, they fire me because I should have told them. So I try to be very honest. I try to look at their view of if I'm trying to hire somebody, you know, like, dang, oh, why didn't you tell me? So I ended up telling him, and he was like, you know what? I was also in your situation years ago, and now look, I'm over the company. So he was like, that doesn't bother me. So he hired me, and I was working for him. I was working hard. I was working from one truck, trying to figure out one truck to load from 1 to 4, and then from 4 to 8. And then new people were coming in, and they didn't know how to do the job, so I ended up training them. So I went from like not knowing any skill to now I have some skills just with this one job. Asked me if I wanted to be, you know, supervisor, and you know the hours of a supervisor and stuff like that. It actually did work for my schedule, but it wasn't what I wanted to do. You know what I'm saying? So I had to, like I said, I think you yourself, I've lived in so long with not being happy. I want to be happy. So I ended up, you know, turning everything down as far as like staying with the company and them, and they very good to me. And there's a couple of people I've met who are also in my situation that work there, but I had to follow my dream. You know, I didn't want to be there, you know, forever. It was just basically temporary, and I ended up taking the company with Sureway because, like I said, that's my dream. You know, to become a professional welder, 100%, and to have the title of that right now, from nothing to a package handler, and I look at like my check stub and in my you know, my occupation, it says a welder. It's a good feeling, you know. It's I'm happy, like I'm satisfied. Now I want to do more welding, you know. I'm getting a little experiences, but I want to do the more advanced stuff, you know, like the stuff that travel, and I want to build the stadium that I drove past and said I made that, you know. So I
So
mean,
Jackie, how about the oil rig, man? Those welders that do that underwater welding, man,
yeah.
they make
You
a
know what?
lot of
Let I'm down, man. I'm down. I just, you know what? It costs more
money.
money though. It's very surprising. It costs more money for you to get your scuba license than it is for you to get your welding license. And it's like, yeah. And I love the
Yeah,
water, but in time, you know, I really, like I said, I really want to do I think the iron worker thing is what I'm kind of
yeah.
struggling. I really see myself up high, and I'm not afraid of heights or nothing like that. So
Wow.
that's what I want to do, most definitely.
Well,
But
you go
one thing
for it,
about
cause
you guys, man, you guys are a real blessing, because I would tell you from the beginning, when I had no car, nothing, no transportation to get to work, I had no idea how to get. I didn't even know how to remember how to take the bus or nothing. Like, how did things change? So I remember I'm home, and you know, I'm talking to Safer and a guy Victor, and he was like, well, we'll give you bus passes, we'll give you all that stuff, you know. And I was surprised, you know. And he was like, you know what, matter of fact, the stimulus came out. I didn't know what a stimulus was. I'm not even gonna lie. I ended up getting my stimulus like the next week, and I was able to buy a really good car with that money. And now I'm still driving the same car, driving on my second job with that, because of you guys opening doors for me that I had no idea how to get there. And it's just a great feeling. Like, I will never forget that. I will never forget coming literally home with nothing, zero scratch, and to come home, and now I'm driving to work on my own. I have my own stuff, and it's a
yeah.
good feeling, man. Like, it's great. Like, I look the little I have, but it's a lot to me because I had nothing, you know. So, man, thank you. What you guys do, man, it works. It works,
Well,
and it means a
you were
lot.
working with a really one of our superstars too, Victor Rodriguez. He's a
Yeah, he's man,
great
he's a
guy, you
great
know.
guy, man.
Yeah.
He made me. You know, there's times I've called him and I was like, you know, and I actually met him not too long ago. I don't know if he told you, but I actually went to the foundation. I was able to go inside and we sat down and talked for a while, and it was pretty
And
cool.
you know,
That's what I want to do. I want to do that. I want to be able to go.
he came to us as a client first. I don't know if you
Yeah.
knew that. Yeah.
No, no, no.
Yeah, he
I'm
did.
very him and me we're actually like really good friends now and stuff like that. Make sure
That's great.
make sure my
Let me
phone
ask you one question that came up, Jackie, and what you were saying. First of all, I just want to say, and I'm sure everybody listening to this is just going to say over and over again, thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing, because
Yeah.
your story is challenging, and you are extraordinary. And I think
Yeah,
what we
thank
want
you.
to do is to make it so that everybody like you has the safer so that they can shine,
Yeah.
like you did. And I'm also curious, and this question has come up in the chat. We're seeing now with COVID the heightened awareness of race and gender issues. Jacqueline, you touched on this a little bit. Victor, I wonder if you want to touch on this a little bit. It's even harder now for people of color to be able to get into education, to get into work, because so many people are unemployed. And I'm wondering if either one of you wants to talk about that. Victor, maybe if you want to go first and talk about kind of the work that you do to make sure that people with records coming out aren't kind of living all of those stigmas and getting pushed further and further to the back of the line when it comes to employment and work. And then Jackie, if you want to touch on a little bit, you now moving into this field that's dominated by men, but as you said, once you feel that once you've got your welding and you know how to do the job, you're kind of breaking in there with a different kind of skill. So Victor, do you want to talk a little bit about what you're seeing and how you kind of prepare people to navigate all of those kind of confluence of inequality to get out ahead of that? And then what do we need to do for the system to
Sure.
eliminate those barriers?
Well, I think that COVID, a couple of things. Some of the traditional kind of entry level jobs that people with records coming out of jail and prison might access are no longer available. You know, a lot of the jobs in restaurants and hotels and event venues, sporting venues, different things like that, where you have basic jobs. Um, so we have had to shift over and say, where are the opportunities and how do you move people into those opportunities? A lot of transportation opportunities right now. People are buying all kinds of stuff online and having things delivered, and that's why organizations like UPS have had to hire a lot of people. Um, so I think for us, two things really stand out. One is the shift to virtual and the reliance on technology has really made this digital divide an even more pressing issue. It's the reason why we've had to say, as part of what we offer our clients, we need to help them with technology. We need to help them with digital literacy because they're going to have that to take advantage of educational opportunities, employment opportunities, to get access to resources they need. So, this is a broader issue in our society where internet access, high-speed internet access to computers and other technology is going to be very critical for people to just function in life. So that's an issue. The education and skill side of it is an issue as well, because when you think about the kind of growth opportunities, there's a tremendous growth in IT related jobs. But there was a recent study that said that unless something happens to deal with the educational disparity in Black and Brown people and the digital divide issues, 86% of the opportunities that are created will be missed. We're going to have to do something to address these issues. It means helping people with the bridge academic work so they can get to the point where they can qualify to go into training programs and education programs, getting people into the career opportunities that are growing. where other industries have already shrunk because of COVID, and some of them may never come back fully the way they were. So, what are those new opportunities, and how do we prepare people for the new opportunities? The IT area, the digital space probably represents an opportunity for a great equalization in terms of the income gap and the wealth gap in our country. And if we're going to help Black and Brown people really get to some level of economic parity, we're going to have to go tackle those issues. Because on the other side of that issue and those barriers is a huge opportunity.
Yeah, I agree because I came home and I didn't know how to use anything. Uh, I didn't even know. I actually redid my resume. It looks great. I should send you guys a copy. Um, Honestly, man, I'm gonna tell you, I struggled so bad, even with my phone. My last phone I had was a BlackBerry Pearl. That
Okay.
that was my last phone. So
It's probably in a museum now.
yeah, you see,
Yes.
every day something new with my phone. So I'm like, I guess I'm young, but I'm old school with my stuff. So it's like I didn't know how to do anything. So it was hard. So everybody's all like, email me or text me, and I'm like, can I just call you? Like, it was hard for me, man. You know what? Even the schedule, like my stuff, my anger management stuff, my classes, my course. Man, let me tell you, I even wanted to study for my license because I went and got when I had to renew my license before I started driving again. It was just like everything was hard for me, and I was like, man, and oh my God, like I think in the inside, I think there needs to be some sort of program to right before you come home to refresh. Just a
Hmm.
Microsoft Word, something, because I didn't
Yep.
10 years with and you kind of not. I mean, some things you don't forget, but technology changes all the time. So I'm telling you, I struggled really bad, and I still do kind of struggle with it. I'm getting better, but I mean, it was hard, and like right now, everything's online. COVID, everything's on the
Yep.
phone or online. Everything, or you call something somewhere and you have to press 5 and then 9 and then email and then do this. It's like it's really, for somebody like me, what I don't have those computer skills. I'm not even gonna
Hmm.
lie. It was a struggle, and there's a couple times like Victor, they had to help me out because I didn't know what I was doing. And, he would make the emails and stuff for me, because I just didn't, like I said, and I didn't want to be bummed out because then I felt stupid. I was like, man, I can't even send a basic email or,
Hmm.
figure out my phone. So I think that's important as well, because like I said, I've met a lot of people who've actually came home like 20 years down and they didn't know how to do none of that either. So, I mean, it was just a basic, like it's a skill you don't think you need, but it's something that like it is kind of forgot about because it's kind of like
Right.
here you go, figure it out, and it's hard. Like I said, technology changes. If you don't figure out the technology, you're gonna make something and then probably erase it at the end, and then you worked on it
Yep.
for like 3 hours, and you're like, wow,
Yep.
So, I mean, and like I said, just the basic videos. Like I did the anger management through like an e-learning thing, like a video, and I did the uh my mental health classes on video too. And like I said, it was because everybody does a different system with the video. So I had that app for that, and then that app for that, and then I had to make sure I remember that password for that. And my user, it was just hard. It was not
Hmm.
easy. Everybody thinks it's
Hmm.
easy, but it was not easy at all. So
Yep.
it was a struggle for a while.
And that is fair. We're getting close to the end, so I want to give an opportunity. We've got a new president, a new administration. I'm wondering, as we close out, what would be some recommendations that you all would make for a new administration, so at the federal level, but also thinking about what are some recommendations you might make to make this less hard, to make reentry not so hard, either recommendations to employers, recommendations to the new administration. What do you think needs to change?
In my opinion, it definitely needs to be more funding, like for safer and stuff like that. Because yeah, I'm the one that made it, but there's many who don't, and there's many who don't know who safer is. A lot right now is a lot of things funding, and a lot of people are not getting that, especially with the pandemic going on. A lot of things are falling and failing. Um, Also, to me, a big thing was a lot of, I think jobs, like how Victor is saying, jobs need to give a break. It's a difference when you're in and out, in and out. But when you made one mistake and it cost you to not even follow your dreams or career path, not even find a basic job, you can't be successful at all. Um, to me, see how I'm train me to be a great colleague for your, for your big company. There, I wish there were places where there were, in my opinion, where someone would have trained me these skills. If I didn't have UPS, or if I didn't have my school, what if I want to learn these skills? What if I want to get a basic job? I mean, train me. There should be companies that have a team that trains somebody, like people like me, to be successful and be over the company eventually. And I think that's important. And there's a lot of companies, you'd be surprised, there's many that will hire felons, but there's 10 times more that won't. And like I said, it might not just be a felony. There's some that you didn't even serve time in prison for. You just went to the county jail, and just because of that, you're driving, let's say you're driving without your license that day, or somebody DUI, or maybe even, I know some misdemeanor too. Some people even try to steal just to get a job. It's a struggle, and nobody thinks about it, because especially with people who don't have these problems. But if you can't get income, you're not going to be able to make it. That's 100%. 100%. If you don't go into education and you want to go straight into work, if you can't get that job, and you're competing with, right now, a lot of people lost their jobs. You're competing with millions of people for one job. If you don't get that job, you try again, you try again, try again. I mean, you're going to end up back, or you're end up just giving up on yourself. And that, to me, when you're down, 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 and you're already down, and you got to start over, it's a big thing. And I think we all deserve a chance. It doesn't matter if you made a mistake. It doesn't matter how long you did. I think everybody should be not stereotyped because, oh, I have a felony. Give me a shot and let me make my own bed and lie in it if I mess that up. And I think a lot of people will be surprised how hard we more work than the average American, to be honest, because we're hungry. I'm hungry, and I'm not gonna lie. If we're both up for the position, the guy next to me better be ready, because I'm gonna probably knock him out, then kick him to the curb. Like, hey, I made it, and you didn't. Sorry, I'm gotta kick you out of the circle. But that's a big thing for me, because like I said, if I didn't do my research, it was one company, that I'm not gonna say names, but it was one company, like I said, that would hire me and then fire me once they trained me. If I didn't do my research on that company through the internet, I would have never found that out. You know what I'm saying? So I would have felt all happy, got the job, and I got it, and then I fired them a week later. You know, so that would have made me like, wow. So thank God I didn't go down. I did my little research that I did, but also people need to do that as well before they even try to hire somebody and waste
Yeah,
waste their time. But
that's a
another
great
big
point.
thing, more mental health. Gotta make sure, like I said, you're okay. Make sure everybody gets their providers that they need, basic insurance. Also, like he said, housing, because there are people that don't have anywhere to go. Right now, a lot of shelters and stuff are overly crowded, and only certain people could be there. So we got to make, maybe, in my opinion, make people somewhere they can lay their head, they're comfortable. They're not in the street, they're not cold. And they're not hungry, and just the basic stuff you need. You'll be surprised right now. A lot of people are actually, it's overcrowded, and nobody people are sleeping outside because they can't sleep there. They turn them away. Um, so to
Okay.
me, also, I personally, you know, I think a lot of scholarships need to be. A lot of people don't want to go back to school because of the student loans, and the crazy prices, and there needs to be some type of scholarship. Just because, like I said, we made a mistake doesn't mean that we can't go try again and make it right. And it is hard, when you see a bill of $30,000, or 20, even 13,000, for somebody starting from scratch. There has to be more, places that will, you know, give scholarships and give them or work out a plan. I know some schools will, some schools won't. Some schools you have to pay out of your pocket for each course. It's just to attend and then finish paying your school student loans. Um, so that as well. And like I said, I think safer stuff like them, the foundations, they do definitely need more funding, more things, because it works. I've know 100%. For me it worked, and I know that I've met other people with the foundation that worked as well, men and women, it doesn't matter. And I think that it needs to be more foundations like them, absolutely, all around the United States.
Well, Jacqueline, we certainly agree with you on that point.
Yeah.
But there are a couple of things I would say. First of all, those of you that are listening to this, and you've been listening to Jackie, um, what you are seeing is something that people do not realize uh, exists. That people who have the label of having some sort of criminal record are actually valuable assets to our society. They're assets to our community. They're assets to our businesses, to employers. We tend to have a lot of stereotypical media-driven perspective and images of people that have nothing to do with them. We say that all the time, that we talk about giving people a second chance. But when I hear her story, 18 years old, no guidance, no help, no support, uh, floundering, I would say that some people never got a first chance. The first chance that many of us got, many people who don't get that first chance, they are the ones that end up in the system. Many of them have been victims of trauma and abuse and neglect way before they ever committed any crime. They were victims first. And a lot of times we label them and we never understand that they never had a first chance and they were victims. But underneath all of that is an asset. Our country is going through a generational shift. Baby boomers are retiring. The last batch of them are moving into that retirement age. We need people in key industries. There are industries that are dying and there are industries that are growing and booming. And we need people who want those jobs and who are capable of doing those jobs. So we have an opportunity not just to help people, although we should want to do that just out of our own hearts, but there's a practical reason why we should do it. There are people sitting on the sidelines that could be making a contribution to our society. And if we don't help them get in that role of contributing, then they don't have much choice. What are they going to do to feed their families and to take care of themselves? We talk about wanting to reduce crime. Well, if you don't give them an opportunity, you don't let them do anything in society that's legal, what are they going to do? You know? So we are controlling this thing right now. I would recommend to the new administration, um, first of all, we've got to increase the funding for reentry, and we have to increase it across the board. As you heard Jackie talking, there's a wide range of needs, from housing to healthcare to treatment, education, job readiness and placement, all of those things, a broad spectrum of things that people need. So we need funding for that broad spectrum, but we need it organizationally, like my organization, we need flexibility in that funding. Usually it's too prescriptive. There's a certain amount for this and a certain amount for that and a certain amount for this. But case by case, it varies. Some people may need more help with housing, or some people may need more behavioral health work, whatever that might be. So we need that flexibility. I would really recommend that we push for a national record sealing law. In other words, studies have shown that a person who is about 3 to 4 years after their supervision ends, after their incarceration, after their parole, after their probation, they are no more likely to commit another crime than a person who's never been convicted of a crime at all. So why do we punish people for their entire life? It makes really no sense. We have irrational fears about people. We have stereotypical thoughts about what they're going to do. But there's 77 million people out of a country of 360 million people that have records. They're around us all the time, and we don't even know it. And we wreck these images, and because of that, we create barriers for them that limit their involvement in our society. So I think that a national record sealing would be great. And then after time, we need a law like the Americans with a Disability Act that makes it illegal to discriminate against someone. We have people that's had a record from 20 years ago. They've never done anything wrong, and they still can't get a basic job or rent an apartment because of their record.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why are we doing that?
Agreed.
Why?
Agreed.
I mean, it doesn't really even make sense. It doesn't even, it's not protecting us. I mean, it doesn't make us any more safe. It's not saving any money. I mean, all it does is punish people for the rest of their life for making a
Yeah.
mistake when they were a kid.
You
I
said it
mean,
right. You said it perfect. You said it perfect. Because you know what? Like, sorry to, interrupt, but, I said, I've been looking for places. A lot of the ones I'm looking at, because I wanted a good area. I shouldn't have to go in the, the
the
ugliest
most
areas,
violent.
especially
Yeah.
in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
I've been looking, and a lot of them on background checks, and I'm like, man, doesn't matter how much money I make, doesn't matter how much I'm working, but I gotta turn the page because
Yeah.
I'm not, I can't live there,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it is, I didn't even think about it, but you said it perfectly. I agree with you 100% because I go through those struggles now. It doesn't matter. I have a good job or I go to school. It doesn't matter. I'm a full-time student, full-time, employee. It doesn't matter. It doesn't even matter, that I have the money to pay. They,
We have a client that she was a nurse and she got a record, came out, and was able to kind of get back into nursing. She got hired by a local hospital and 3 months worked there. Everybody loved her, the patients and everybody. And then the background check came back and they fired her.
yeah,
Now she went
Mm-hmm.
to she went to another hospital doing fantastic. I mean, uh, great, great nurse. But you know, why? I mean, you had the person working there, you knew she was a fantastic employee,
Mm-hmm.
but you have a policy that you don't have to have, but you have one in your organization that says you have to weed that person out, whether they're good for you as a business, your clients, and that's what they did. And those
And I
policies
think,
don't make sense.
yep. And I think, and we've got to close this up. So I'm going to thank Jacqueline for sharing and congratulate her for all of
thank
her
you.
success. And we are rooting for her. And I'm going to thank Victor for
Thanks, man.
participating with us today. Victor, thank you. And the other Victor and all the other staff at Safer for the amazing work that you do. Because I think what we've learned from you two is that we've got to flip this narrative, right? The narrative has been that people are the problem and really the system is the
Yeah,
problem. And we've got to make the changes that you all have made, the recommendations to change the system. They will impact Jackie. They will improve Jackie's life, but they make our lives better. They put
Absolutely.
Jackie as a change agent. Jackie's going to build something that's all going to benefit us. Jackie's going to be a great employee. Jackie's going to be a great friend. Jackie's going to be a great community member. We all lose when we forget that people really are the asset and the system is the problem. And we all lose when people can't make their transition from incarceration to careers. And I think one last thing that I want to say is that we need to make sure too that we're allowing people to dream. Like Jackie mentioned, to be able to get out of prison, but to really be free and to make sure that we can really dream. So Jackie, here's to your dreams. Hold them fast, and we are rooting for you.
Absolutely.
And we're rooting for you. And so thank you to everyone who watched our this program today. Thank you for the questions that you shared. Thank you for the work that you do in your corner of the world, and keep pushing with us, because we want to work together to make these changes at the federal, state, and local level. So thank you so very much for joining with us, and we hope that you stay tuned for other It Started at Horizons webinar series.
Yeah.
So thank you both.
Thanks, Lucretia.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. See you, Jackie.
Have a good one. See you,
Okay.
man. Have a good one.
All
Take
right.
care, you
Bye-bye.
guys.
You too.